You're listening to the Theme Park Land Podcast, episode number 3, for the week of June 25th, 2025. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Theme Park Land Podcast. This is episode number 3. I'm your host, Matt Dobrovolsky, joined once again by my co-host, Matt Rogers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back.
Thank you all for tuning in again. Wonderful to have you guys back with us. Quick little bit of housekeeping notes for next week. There will be no show. Obviously, it is July 4th, so we are taking that week off. But also, too, someone's got his in-laws coming in, so plans are going to be a little preoccupied for someone.
We're going to be going to Epic Universe.
So jealous. So jealous. I want to go back. Universal, give me my annual pass option.
Please.
So yes, no podcast next week, but we look forward to bringing you back for episode 4 the following week after that. No real plans yet on what we're going to be talking about with episode 4. Might be diving a little bit more into Universal, but, you know, it's kind of really up to you guys, whatever you guys really want to have us talk about.
Yeah, please just let us know what you would want to hear. Again, this podcast is for you and to kind of fill the void and whatever information you would like us to discuss.
Actually, one thing we can definitely talk about that week, I'll have ridden Test Track by then.
I'm riding Test Track that week as well on Thursday.
So we will definitely be talking to you about Test Track that next episode, because that we will have done the previews by then. So we're looking forward to that immensely. So this week we're going to be diving into some news. Well, just really one news story. We're also going to be talking about the future of Disney's Hollywood Studios, continuing on our discussion from last week. And we're also going to be talking to you about our thoughts and opinions that we have. We just visited Universal this morning and have some interesting thoughts that we can share about that. So diving in first to our news story for the week. Really only one good news story that is very, very important in my opinion. And that is the 2045 comprehensive plan from the Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, also known as CFTOD, also known as the district, also better known as Reedy Creek. They have revealed potential new parks coming for Walt Disney World. So, Central Florida Tourism Oversight District, again, I'll just abbreviate it as CFTOD, has explicitly reserved development capacity for a new major theme park and 2 minor theme parks to be added over the next 2 decades. While Disney has not announced any plans to build a 5th gate, the language in this current plan from the district does suggest the possibility can remain under active consideration. The district's future land use and infrastructure policies are written to support the potential development of this large-scale new park should Disney choose to pursue it. The CFTOD plan does allow for 1 new major theme park defined in planning terms as a park on the scale of Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, or Animal Kingdom, with projected land area of 400 to 550 acres. It also allows for 2 additional minor theme parks, typically smaller attractions like water parks, each estimated at 147 acres. These parks are not guaranteed projects, but by including them in the plan, the district is preserving the zoning, land use classification, and infrastructure assumptions necessary for them to be developed one day. This does mean a 5th theme park could be built without requiring a comprehensive plan amendment or regulatory change. Look, we've all kind of guessed that we could be seeing a brand new theme park one day, but is this kind of solidifying the plans? Could we see a 5th theme park for Walt Disney World in the next 20 years?
I think we could. The question is, will we? Right?
I think we will. I truly believe that Disney is going to need to properly compete with Universal. I've always said my goal that I would love to see Disney do with a fifth theme park would be on the level of Tokyo Disney Sea. That centralized adventure exploration kind of theme park radiating outwards with these different ports. And obviously that notion to a point is successful here in Orlando with Islands of Adventure.
I think you got to look at like what concepts could possibly be introduced in a new theme park. So for Disney, we know going forward, they've stated there's not going to be any more original attractions like Countdown to Extinction, Pirates of the Caribbean, Haunted Mansion. They're all going to be IPs going forward. So the question is, how do you put that together in a brand new park concept? I think looking to what is happening with Disney's Adventure in Paris is really important.
Yes, and how Disney Adventure World, better known as probably Disney's IP World.
Yeah, but it's what they're doing to studios over in Paris right now. It's
and that's also what they're doing with California Adventure as well.
I think
to a point.
I think once that's done, see how it kind of sticks together. I think that'll be a good indicator going forward of what a new park would look like here if they do that. I think also, like Matt just said, looking at California Adventure, the things they might do over there over the next 10 years. Now, that being said, I personally don't see a new theme park coming to Disney World in the next 15 years at least.
Oh, at least. Yeah. I mean, based on this plan, it is 2045. So 20 years from now. Should we see a fifth theme park in 20 years? God, I hope so. God, I hope so, because, God, I'll be 52 years old. I need to see a new theme park for Walt Disney World.
So that's the other question. Where do you think this theme park would be on property?
I know you have your opinions, but I think based on where they could put it, based on acreage, the plans for infrastructure updates to the roadways, I think they could put it somewhere off of Western Way.
And you know what? I agree with you, because
for those of you that obviously don't know, that's just off of Coronado Springs, that kind of area.
If you look at the roadways, where Epcot Center Boulevard tees off with World Drive and where Western Way is, it's kind of that whole void swampland behind Coronado that would definitely be big enough. And it has the road connections that I think could be kind of modified to handle it.
Yeah, because literally I am looking at Google Maps right now, and you can just see how massive that... I mean, you could easily put... Since I'm looking at Epcot also right there too, you could easily put 5 Epcots there. 5 Epcots.
Well, there's also a really important advantage to that area. It's right next to Reedy Creek facilities.
Yep.
So running infrastructure to a new park would be a lot easier, because where the infrastructure runs to, it's already right there.
Right. And again, I'm just looking at this right now. There's so much acreage right there. You do have a little bit of acreage that's just north of Epcot on the other side of Epcot Center Drive. Yeah, I mean, depending on how they place this park, you could also do it there. But the logical place would be like right there on Western Way. Central Florida Tourism Oversight District has also stated that they are working on infrastructure updates to Western Way right there, where they're going to add an extra lane in each direction. I know you had your opinions on that it could go just off of Floridian Way up there too.
They are doing a lot of stuff with moving dirt over there. One of the interesting things I could see in my mind that might make sense is a new parking lot off of Floridian Way, kind of near Shades of Green. A new theme park next to Magic Kingdom, and have kind of a shared parking lot with from the parking lot hub, a brief walk over to Magic Kingdom, and that might actually alleviate the nightmare of parking at Magic Kingdom and going and taking the boats and the monorails, because we all know when we leave that park at closing, it can be a pretty intense experience with crowd levels.
But see, also looking at that, so that
might alleviate it.
Looking at that area, you do have enough room to create your own parking lot over there instead of like a shared kind of thing with like the TTC area. But even if you're talking about that idea, monorail expansion?
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
And that's sad. That's sad that we automatically assume that.
The monorail infrastructure is so expensive. I think if there's going to be any future transportation system, it will probably be the Skyliner system. And the reason I say that is just compared to buses, how efficient that system is. The whole thing is powered by basically one motor. Each system on a Skyliner is powered by one motor.
That's true.
So it is just incredibly efficient. A monorail train has like, I think 5, 6, 7 motors on it, and it's just a lot more energy consumption. And then you have the concrete beamway. I can tell you a ski lift is a lot cheaper to build.
And I mean, I think that's also why they went with the Skyliner option.
Even
when they did.
Even in what's called an automated people mover, kind of like what they put in airports, like at MCO, the little automated trains that run around. Even doing something like that makes more sense than a full-on monorail with a big concrete beam. I just don't ever see them expanding the monorail exactly as it is today.
The other thing that also has to be considered with all this is that you have a certain amount of acreage of the Walt Disney World property that does need to be earmarked for conservation. If you remember, gosh, I believe this was like late 2010s. I think it was still a good chunk before COVID. They bought up a huge amount of land down in like the Point Siena area. And everyone said, wait, why are they doing this? And it was revealed, it was reminded to all of us that they do have to earmark enough area for conservation. Obviously, Walt Disney World wouldn't build down there because it's so far away from the resort. So why not own that land, dub that the conservation, and now they can add on to what was already earmarked for conservation on the existing property. I want to say they bought up maybe over 500 acres down there, which easily, I mean, that's a park right there.
Something like that, exactly. It points to a future expansion is more likely in the current resort, right? But we know how slow Disney is in building things. That's why, like, it sounds like it's setting up to build another park, which you would think would be imminent because we just saw Epic Universe get built in less than 3 years.
True.
But you have to look at the time it takes Disney to build something. We're not getting another park in 10 years.
Well, like I said, maybe, like we talked about last week, maybe they will surprise us and maybe they will get moving with these projects even quicker.
I mean, and by all means, please, because that would be very, very exciting. We're both theme park fans. We want every project to be successful. We want every project to happen. It's just, it would be very nice to see Disney be able to kind of charge ahead like Universal has done and just say, all right, we have our project. We know what it is. Let's build it. Let's go.
Correct.
Because it's like it's kind of calmed down now, but the past 2 years watching Epic Universe and South Campus at Universal be built, that was incredible. That was so exciting watching that park show up.
I mean, you could literally drive by every week and see something new. Then again, it's also a massive theme park being built in Central Florida, so I mean, it was cool either way to see that. So,
but time will tell.
Yeah, no, time will tell with this. I really hope, in our lifetime, we will see a fifth theme park. In our lifetime, yeah. I'm on my deathbed and I better see a fifth theme park already. Anyway, moving on. That was our only one news story for the week. So, moving on, let's talk about our time at Universal this morning.
Yeah, so we did the early park admission because we're pass holders.
Mm-hmm.
We got there at 8-ish. We went to Hagrid's.
We got there a little bit before 8, and lines were okay getting into.
It was posted an hour, and we waited an hour.
Yeah.
We did. I mean, that's meeting the expectation 100%. The line, it's a lot of stop and go, but I think considering, we got to the end of the line just inside the castle, right? And we waited an hour. I think the overall queue experience was okay.
Right.
Truly, I mean, the caves, we're not a fan of that because it's a lot of sensory overload.
You're telling me
some
the
of
only
the
place
spiels
I feel
are loud.
is in Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure Queue Caves. Good Lord, that's a lot of talking on there.
But it's a good ride. It's
we love Hagrid's. I mean, before Guardians, that was my favorite coaster in Central Florida. But one of the things I want to mention that also blew up on my Twitter because I posted it this morning, the pre-show is back at Hagrid's.
Yes.
And a lot of people completely forgot that there was a pre-show because, the only way you would have seen this pre-show was if you rode the ride in the first week that it was open, back in 2019. And it's a really good pre-show. It sets up the story. Arthur Weasley is messing with Sirius Black's motorbike. And Hagrid is basically asking him for help in getting all the students, which are us, through the Forbidden Forest in a timely manner. And Arthur it's not really a curse. It's like a charm, actually, that duplicates the motorbike. So in this way, that's how we board our motorbikes.
That's the ride vehicle. It's a roller coaster train.
So, it sets up the important storyline. And I think it's a really cute pre-show that for the longest time, nobody was getting to see. When they first opened, this pre-show was they would bring you in, they would play it, and then you'd leave, and then they bring in the next group. So just like a typical pre-show would be
they would batch a group.
Right. Like E.T. Adventure or something like that, or a typical 3D show where you would start in the pre-show and then work your way into the main theater. That is not happening now. They're just running it continuously while you're in there, which I think is a great idea.
They set up switchbacks in that room and it just runs in a loop. So it's really nice because you get to see it.
Right. No, but it's great because it's an important storyline.
It's something neat to see in an otherwise dull and empty queue.
Correct.
Because the rest of the queue, I was thinking with Matt earlier today, why isn't this in my top 10 themed experiences?
Because that queue is such a pain in the butt.
It's not just that. It's the queue doesn't engage with us like it does at Ministry, right? Like it does at Monsters or Harry Potter and Forbidden Journey or Spider-Man. Right. It's kind of there. And I think part of that is from...
The other big thing that I could also mention with this too is they have just brought out Express Pass finally to Hagrid's after, again, 6 years of this thing being open. One of the biggest reasons of why they didn't do this was because of how low the capacity was in the morning. This is something that we learned through the grapevine, was that their maintenance building that they would store the ride vehicles in overnight, obviously, and to have its preventative maintenance done every evening wasn't big enough for all the vehicles that they would need in the morning, which is 10 vehicles. So they would be able to get about 7 of them done.
So essentially what they were doing is they would have half the fleet in the maintenance bay overnight. Yeah. They would do the daily, whatever PM preventative maintenance tasks they had to do on that train. those trains. And then before opening, the other trains would be on the track. They would swap them. So in the morning, it would only open with maybe 6 or 7 trains.
Versus the 10 now that they're...
Right. And then what they would do is once they finish up the preventative maintenance on the trains that are then in the maintenance bay after the ride is open, after a few hours, they would take a downtime and they would add these trains on.
Right.
Which would stop operation for a little bit of the ride. And it's not... That ride, the way it's designed, is not seamless. On a ride like Revenge of the Mummy, Spider-Man, adding and removing vehicles is pretty seamless. That doesn't really interrupt operation of the ride.
Right.
But Hagrid's just doesn't have that capability. So what they've done is they spent a lot of money. They basically double the size of the maintenance bay in the back, because somewhere they found room to do that. And
well, they originally had a building back there, but I think that was being used for Forbidden Journey.
It was, yes. Yeah. So they doubled the size of the maintenance bay. Doing that probably cost about as much as what a regional park spends on a new ride. Mm-hmm. So that was a crazy investment, but it has now allowed them to open the ride at full capacity every day because they can bring all the trains in, do the preventative maintenance on them, and then put them all out in the morning.
You know what I bet the return on investment is with that? It is totally the fact that now that they can put Express on there. So
100%.
All the people that wouldn't have bought Express before because Hagrid wasn't on there are now buying it. And there you go. There is your return on investment for this.
But also,
initiative.
Again, Universal they look at the guest satisfaction scores.
Absolutely.
Opening at full capacity in a world-class theme park is just really, really good practice.
Now, I will say, when we left the ride, it was posting 2 hours. At one point, it was posting 2.5. Don't know if there were any delays with that, but it was kind of averaging just at most 2 hours. This is not helping the wait time. It's still keeping that wait time about the same as it was just last month, if anything, because this only switched over about 3 weeks ago or something like that. But it's important to know that the wait time is still kind of staying the same because of the Express being added on. What we noticed while we were going through the line was that it was a lot of stop-go. We're going, they're pulling the standby line, all of a sudden we stop because now they're pulling the Express people in. And good Lord, there were a lot of Express people going through when we left. That line for Express easily could have been 25 minutes.
I would be interested to see if after the morning rush, maybe 4 hours into the day, how that Express line is versus the standby line and how that standby line moves. Because I wonder
things that I will tell you.
I wonder if Express is getting hammered in the morning because everyone has Express. They just want to go on Hagrid's.
2 things I'll warn you about with that, though. Number 1, the people that bought the unlimited Express. Remember, Universal with their Express, they have the regular Express, which is a one-time usage for each ride, where you pay, I think it's $40 extra a person for unlimited access, meaning you can go on the rides as many times as you want through the Express line. And if you're that Joe Schmo family that bought the unlimited and they fell in love with Hagrid's, they're going to keep riding that all day long if they want to.
So really, this is a ride that shouldn't be on the unlimited, or it should be an add-on to unlimited for just a one-off.
Right. Because then the second point I was going to make, 4 o'clock, when the Premier Pass holders that get the one-time usage of Express can go in.
There's probably a spike then.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, my 2 cents with this, yeah, Hagrid's 100% deserves to be on Express. It needs to be an add-on, just like you mentioned. It cannot be a part of the main Express, unless they're going to bump up the Express price now, which is entirely possible.
I don't think they need to do that for one attraction. I think they just need to go to an add-on model.
True.
And just say, okay.
What if they had their version of Lightning Lane Single Pass? It was called Express Single Pass. Good Lord, that's a mouthful.
But I think they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
They're, it's only been a few weeks in. They're gonna get the guest opinions. They're going to throw the surveys out there, and they're going to figure out what they want to do.
Right.
So,
but yeah,
it all just depends on how this line moves and how ops can handle it.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a fantastic job with it, because I don't recall ever really seeing Hagrid's kind of pushing through people that quickly before. So they're doing a great job with this edition. Now, after Hagrid's, of course, we had to ride Matt's new favorite ride,
Velocicoaster.
Which, very good props to you, my friend, because you are doing very good job with weight management.
Woot, woot.
Woot, woot, indeed. You're doing a fantastic job because you never fit before on Velocicoaster when it opened just a few years ago. But you're doing a great job because
I get to ride Intamin Chaos Machine again. So Intamin is the manufacturer of the ride. It's any ride they build. They just build some crazy things. Matt got to see the roller coaster nut side of me for the first time today.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm fun.
I can't wait to see this guy on Stardust Racers one day. Well, you're probably going to ride it next week, if anything.
I'll try it. I did not get the test seat last time, but that was only 2 weeks before Velocicoaster, so I'm interested.
So I think you'll probably get it now. You probably will.
We'll see. I recall that coming down more on my stomach than my thighs.
Yeah. Operational-wise, though, Velocicoaster, they were pumping through.
They were hauling
people.
I
Great job, Velocicoaster team, because holy moly, you guys were doing a fantastic job.
We should give them a shout out.
I'll probably do a shout out on Twitter later, because good lord, they were doing a fantastic job. I mean, they were dispatching those trains, what did we figure, every 45 seconds? Like, they were getting these people in, pulling the restraints down, checking quickly, and just dispatching.
They were easily every minute they were sending a train.
Because I think we ran the numbers, and it was about 1,700 an hour-ish that they were pulling.
Potential, yeah.
So they were doing a great job. Also got to head on over to Kong. And for those of you that haven't been on Skull Island, Reign of Kong in a while, you probably found out that they were doing a lot of work on the outdoor section of the ride. Not exactly sure truly what they were doing. I think they were messing with the RFID reader pucks that are in the ground, because it is a trackless ride. So I don't think it's been running the outdoor section for about 2 years, maybe?
It is my understanding that essentially, the way I'll say this is, it was a prototype ride, and there's a lot of differences between the way that ride system is constructed and the way Fast and Furious ride vehicles are constructed in their suspension. So there are some engineering things I think they probably had to go and work on. Right? Like, there's a reason Fast and Furious doesn't have an outdoor section. There's a reason Fast and Furious, the ride path on it is perfectly level. Because the new outdoor ride path on Kong, it still has some of those elevation changes. They're just a little more subtle. So I think they just had to work on some things to improve reliability and maintenance costs on it a little bit, and find that balance in that and the ride experience.
But I will also say with Kong, the ride is suffering.
From?
Well, they got rid of 3D, which we were talking about this. We think it was more of a guest satisfaction thing, that the guests wanted the 3D off of there. I think removing the 3D takes away a lot of the immersion to the ride. And we also noticed that there were some audio issues with the Kong animatronic at the end of the ride. And also, too, when we were pulling into the unload, we didn't hear the last bit of the audio from the storyline, because some team member that was in the tower position decided to start doing spiels for the queue, which was also going into the load and unload area, which I think was ridiculous. But the ride, and also to the animatronic witch that's in the queue, which I love that scene. I love it so much. Something was up with her too, because
she wasn't quite 100%.
Yeah.
It also, I didn't say anything about this to you earlier, but I think they turned down the audio in that room a little bit.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Well, we were also in there at the beginning of the show thing, so...
But, like, even, I remember, like, we heard the end of the show, but it was really quiet.
True.
And I know we weren't quite in that room, but I remember being in that spot and hearing it. Like, there was no mistaking. You could hear the Kong roar, but it was just...
I could hear it from the end of the room, because obviously...
But I think that might have been in response to guest feedback, because
Possibly.
if you got stopped in that room for a little bit...
I mean,
it
also,
was
too,
really
if you
loud.
remember, they used to have the scare actor in the queue. And they removed the scare actor, too, based on guest feedback. I mean, nobody wanted to get scared by a random...
Booga booga.
I mean, it was basically Horror Nights there. And a lot of people didn't like that for that reason. And, you know, I didn't like that either. So that made total sense that they got rid of that.
It's fine without it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, I do love going on Kong now, and I'm glad that outdoor portion is back, because that does bring back a little bit of the ride on there, too.
And then we had a nice lunch after that at the Leaky Cauldron.
Mm-hmm. Got my Scotch eggs. The only quick service place in a theme park to get Scotch eggs. I say quick service because you can go to Rose and Crown over at Epcot and sit down and have Scotch eggs there.
And then on the way out, what happened?
We bought stuff.
Merchandise just got us.
We spent money. I bought a Yoshi pillow that I'm 95% sure is direct from Universal Japan. Dropped a nice little $70 on that with my discount. How much did you spend? $200?
Don't say that out loud. But yeah, no, they have some really cool 35th anniversary merch. Classic Universal Studios. They have...
it was really cool because it
they
had
have
like
a really
Jurassic
nice shirt.
Park,
Yeah.
it had E.T., Kong.
No, the shirt had all those original IPs
Right.
on it, and then I also got a Back to the Future shirt because I remember riding that ride, and then they have a classic 35th anniversary hoodie as well.
Right. And I've always said this. Universal does a great job with their merchandise. They're appealing to what the guests truly want. My biggest opinion, though, is that the prices are about the same as any other theme park. However, it is very hard for us as annual pass holders to justify only getting a 10-15% discount, whatever it is, when you try and then I have to try and track down my team member friends because they get 35. And with all that being said, great day at Universal. Really looking forward to being able to go back there again too. But let's move on to our last discussion. Last week we talked about the past and the present of Disney's Hollywood Studios. Today let's talk about the future of Disney's Hollywood Studios. And Matt, take it away.
So recently, 2 new shows have debuted at Hollywood Studios. The new Mermaid show, which I don't know the title off the top of my head.
Little Mermaid, a musical adventure, I want to say is the name.
And then the other show is...
It's a long title, just like any other attraction lately.
What is it called? Villains Unhappily Ever After?
Villains Unfairly Ever After, right?
I think.
But wow, we probably should have actually paid attention to this before we started recording.
But that's the real talk. But Matt, you've seen these shows. Mm-hmm. I have not. So what's your take on these?
Well, look, I will say, first off with the Villains show. The Villains show is nice. It's good. It helps with the capacity of the park. It gives something for people to do. And it is something to entice people for the next few years before the Villains Land opens in Magic Kingdom.
Do you think it's anything beyond a hype show for
Correct.
the land?
There's nothing. There's nothing beyond that.
So
because
as soon as this land has an opening date, you think it's going to get the axe?
It's either going to get the axe or they'll move it over to Magic Kingdom, 100%. It's literally just like the way I could kind of describe it, it would be like a marketing thing for Villains Land. Is like, don't forget about the villains, because in 5 years you're going to be able to explore with the villains in Villains Land.
A hype show.
a hype show. 100%. 100%.
Does it have a cohesive story? How's the...
100%. And I will say,
it's like it's a good story-driven
that theme
show.
song is addicting. It is 100% addictive. You can already listen to it on Apple Music or wherever you listen to your music, and it's a good, catchy song. There's just nothing else really past that. It's something that I will probably go to see when I visit the park, which probably won't be that much because Muppet Vision's gone. But I would go to see the Little Mermaid show more than the villain show.
So what's your take on the Mermaid show? Now, you've, of course, seen the original one, right?
Correct.
That used to occupy the space. Is it the same execution? Is it like what's different about it?
It's got different execution. And again, without trying to go into the spoilers, I mean, we have the videos out there on it, which actually just reminds me I have to post my videos of that on YouTube. So if you're listening to this, and hopefully you can head on over to YouTube and darthvader92.com and check that out. The show is different story-wise because it starts with Part of Your World instead of Under the Sea, like the other show did. But it's also using a different style of animation. If you remember, Voyage of the Little Mermaid would use scenes from the movie to convey the animation. This one uses a very odd choice of animation. To me, though, it works. It works. It could be a little bit better. I wish, we had spent the money to tweak up the animation a little bit and make it look more like the actual characters that we see in the movie. But I can also get what they were trying to go with it, because they were trying to make them look more like Ariel and Eric that you actually see on stage there, as well as the puppets that you see too. Because there are some points when you'll see the puppet of Sebastian and then you'll see him on the screen, and you can't really tell which one's the puppet and which one's on the screen.
Really?
Yes. And I think they did a good job with that. The Ursula puppet that they do, it looks like they kind of updated her a little bit. My biggest complaint is that it's not Pat Carroll doing the voice of Ursula. I get it. She passed away. Can't really bring her back from the dead to record this. But she's already saying all the same lines that are in the movie. Why didn't we just piece together the original audio from Pat Carroll? However, there is something really cool that we got, and that is King Triton is voiced by Jim Cummings. Very famous voice actor. He voiced Winnie the Pooh, and he also voiced Tigger, and he voiced Ray from Princess and the Frog. He voiced Cat and Cat Dog. And, I heard that voice immediately when he started talking, and that was really cool to see him do as Triton. Overall, though, the Mermaid Show, 100% worth a visit when you get to Hollywood Studios. You need to go see this show. I talked about it on a previous episode that Ron Logan did produce Voyage of the Little Mermaid, and if he saw this show today, he'd be very satisfied.
Good. Like I said, I haven't seen them. I'm looking forward to it. It looks like they're, Disney Live Entertainment, when they're unleashed, they produce some really quality shows. But moving on, let's kind of circle back to Sunset Boulevard, because Rock and Roller Coaster is getting a new theme to the Muppets.
Is it going to be enough to replace Muppet Vision? Let's see.
Well, so this is a kind of a two-part point here. We know the ride is getting this re-theme. There's going to be music with, Dr. Teeth and Electric Mayhem?
Correct.
Right? So that'll be really exciting to see their covers on some music. We don't know what music that will be, but I think the ride is going to be pretty similar. What do you think in terms of
I mean,
theming inside? We kind of touched on how easy it
probably
is to change
won't-
artists last time.
They won't change anything inside. I can pretty much guarantee that. I think you're going to see them update the audio. Obviously, we'll put a fresh new coat of paint on the super stretch limos. But it's probably going to be the same story. There'll probably be like a I don't know, some live actor that's going to come into the Electric Mayhem in the recording studio. Or it's going to be Kermit going in there saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing? You were supposed to be at the show right now. All right, let's get you over into those super stretch limos that are parked out there. And, yeah, we'll shoot you out at 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds.
Vroom, vroom.
Yes, I do a pretty good Kermit impression.
But, so this is obviously going to be an anchor attraction, because Rock and Roller Coaster is an anchor attraction.
Absolutely.
So, what do you think is going to be replacing the villain show once that goes away in a few years? Could we get another Muppet show?
I want it to be a new Muppet show. As a diehard Muppet fan, I don't want to see Muppet Vision go down there. And that's saying something. More importantly, I want the Jim Henson Studios to come in and help with this. The biggest problem that I've said with the Muppets since Disney acquired them prior to the 2011 movie with Jason Segel and Amy Adams, the biggest problem that Disney has had with the Muppets is that they're not doing the right things with them. And I think the biggest problem is that Disney doesn't know how to do it. The Henson Studios knows how to do it. The only time we truly got the best of the Muppets with Disney's acquisition was the short-lived ABC series. And even that could have been a little bit better. And, good Lord, it was just on the tip of my tongue. It'll come to me. Muppet Haunted Mansion. There we go.
So, what was your take on the Great Muppet Moments in History show in Liberty Square?
Oh, actually, yeah, that would be number 3, actually.
How was, was that a good production in your eyes?
That was a wonderful production. Especially as that atmospheric entertainment.
So does that give you any confidence that maybe Disney could do another theme park Muppets attraction?
If you were...
I guess we have to see how it goes with Rock and Roller Coaster.
Right. I think we have to see how it goes with Rock and Roller Coaster. If you were to somehow bring in the actual puppets for this show, which I know they would never do, that would be the way to go. And especially if you could do a version of the Muppet Show. That would be incredible.
Like maybe almost Muppet Vision 2.0.
Yeah. I mean, there was a talk a long time ago. I think it was shortly after the 2011 movie came out, that they were looking into doing a 2.0 of Muppets because Walter had just premiered as a Muppet on there, voiced by the amazing Peter Linz. But his character really didn't take off. That's the problem. However, when they were also working on this, they were facing a lot of backlash because, again, this was Jim Henson's last project. Again, we talked about it last week that it does seem that Disney went through with VR technology to preserve Muppet Vision 3D. It's just a lot of people have been telling me they're interested to see the future truly because this is a interesting closing for an attraction where we did not get any closing merchandise. And that's why I think there is that idea out there that it will come back and replace that theater.
Well, because also when you look at what Disney has been adding in the past few years, and look at what they've announced, it seems they're trying to go the immersive area route, like the immersive land route, right? For example, Monstropolis is going to be an immersive themed area. Villain's Land is going to be an immersive area. Even Piston Peak over at Magic Kingdom is going to
He did what in his peak?
It's going to be an immersive area as well. They've seen it in Galaxy's Edge, of course. So I can't imagine having just Muppets replacing Rock and Roller Coaster and whatever goes in that building next to it where Villains is. I can't imagine that not being a Muppets attraction and sort of turning into a Muppets area.
100%. It's going to be something Muppets. It's just, what will Disney do? But like I said, bring in the Henson Studios to help you out with this. I think it's vital to the Muppets' survival to have the Henson Company working with you on this, especially Brian Henson.
Absolutely.
He's still alive. He is still very active with the studio. Let him come in and offer his 2 cents. And I will also say this as well. I think we made a mistake in firing Steve Whitmire, who was the second voice for Kermit after Jim's passing, because he also worked alongside Jim. Now, then again, I don't know what that whole feud was, because if I remember correctly with that, the Henson Studios did basically give their okay to Disney firing Steve, so something was going on there. But I think it was the creative differences. Disney wanted to go one way with the Muppets. Steve basically said, no, we have to stay the true way of the Muppets. And that was that raunchy adultness to it, too. Where we get, such gems like Muppets Take Manhattan, Great Muppet Caper, heck, even Muppets from Space. Muppets from Space is such a hidden gem of the Muppets lore that, if you haven't seen that, you need to watch that. Anyway, yes, that theater one day will probably become Muppets. It's just, it won't happen probably until the next decade. We're going to have this villain show probably until the end of the decade when the Villain's Land opens, and then they will close it and it will become Muppets related.
I agree. Touching on our last big thing for Hollywood Studios in the future. Monstropolis. Again,
I'm excited for this. It's just, why did it need to take over the Muppets?
So I think from a budget perspective, creating a city out of an existing city facade, it just works.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that's a lot of the motivator.
This was
a lot
totally
of it's already
related.
built. A lot of it's already built. So all you have to do is
if
put
you
your
had
big
done
e-ticket
this with
ride.
Star Wars Launch Pad, you would have had to demolish that whole building, that whole area, and start from the ground up. With Muppets, they had the existing infrastructure. They just need to update everything, and the only thing they need to build now is the roller coaster in the back.
Now, that being said, this roller coaster is going to be pretty unique. It's kind of like a combination of the little family Inverticoaster at Fun Spot with Cosmic Rewind spinning, it looks like.
That is a great comparison to it, because that sounds awesome, actually.
No, I mean, this is going to be really interesting for, smaller kids are going to be able to ride this. And smaller kids don't generally get the ride.
How small do you think it would be?
38 inches, I think, maybe.
You really think that's short?
I think maybe 40 inches then. But smaller kids...
I was going to go for like 44.
No. Smaller kids are going to be able to ride this. And it's going to be a fun ride for them. It's going to be considered a big ride because their feet are dangling. It's going to be an immediate vertical lift out of the station, it looks like.
So what's the height requirement for the one over in Fun Spot? Because the only one that comes to my mind would be Dragon Challenge or Dueling Dragons. Now, obviously, that was probably a lot more intense than what this is going to be. But that same kind of system, that was 54 inches.
Oh, this is neat. It's 52 inches
Okay.
or 38 with an adult.
Interesting. Do we think that could be Disney's first multiple height requirement based ride?
No, because
The ops cast member in me is going crazy.
Because this is what I think. If you look, so Vekoma builds this line of roller coasters called roller skaters, or their junior roller coasters. It's what Flight of the Hippogriff and Troller Coaster is. Okay? The height requirement from Vekoma for those rides is 36 inches. Barnstormer at Magic Kingdom is a Vekoma roller skater. It's the same layout as Troller Coaster except mirrored. Disney put it at 35 inches. 1 inch lower than the manufacturer initially said. So Disney kind of does this thing with certain ride manufacturers where they can kind of do things that, or take liabilities that other parks wouldn't necessarily do for one reason or another. So I could see this just being 38 inches, their standard policy where you have to be 7 or older to ride alone.
I will say, if that is the case, if they can get it that low, that's a huge win for that park.
Yes.
In a park that only has 2 rides that have no height requirement.
That's why I'm saying I think this is going to be a great option for families. Because also, like, Monsters, Inc. is friendly for smaller kids. Like, the franchise as a whole. It's a movie meant for the whole family. So most of the family is going to be able to ride this ride.
Yeah. I truly think this is going to be... It will be a great thing for the park. I've said from the get-go when they showed us that it was going into Muppets, yes, we're getting something into the Muppets Theater. We don't know what it is, but at least we're getting that back in a capacity form in a few years. However, the roller coaster is not taking up anything existing. It is being built on the old cast member parking lot. So what it's doing is adding true capacity to this park that desperately needs more capacity.
So I just think it's a great project overall. Am I sad it has replaced the Muppets? Yes, but I think it's a very good project overall. Now there's 2 dining locations that are going to open. Harryhausen's from the movie, which is going to be the hibachi sushi place.
Yeshamase! I swear, if they're not shouting that as I walk in, I want my money back.
Make it authentic.
Make it authentic, darn it.
But the other question is Pizza Rizzo. Nothing's really been announced or hinted at what that's going to be. You think it's still going to be the Disney pizza mediocrity at its best?
Take a look at what they did when that was Pizza Planet. That was Pizza Planet all-themed Toy Story. Me, when I was 7 years old, I wanted to eat there so badly, mainly because they had all the arcade games in there. And the 7-year-old in me loved it. And then I bit into that pizza and I'm like, oh, this is just like Chuck E. Cheese.
I went there as Pizza Planet and I was so disappointed because all I wanted to do was get an alien out of the claw machine. And it was a fake claw machine in the middle. It was just a prop.
I was going to say, do they even have that as like a game option?
No, it was a prop.
It was just like the arcade games and that was really it.
Yeah, but it was just a prop in the middle. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I want to go play the thing and get an alien. They're like, it's not real. And I was like, oh.
But then when they decided to truly make that a Muppets courtyard, and they said, okay, we're going to make that Pizza Rizzo. Cool. It was the same lousy pizza with a cheap overlay.
So this is the other interesting thing. Is Disney ever going to elevate that kind of food like we've seen Universal kind of do, or like we've seen Disney do in some of these new lands?
God, I hope so.
It would be interesting. I mean, I think elevating food in parks is definitely going to be a trend, because even Cedar Fair, before they merged with Six Flags, was starting to focus on that. So I think that's kind of interesting. But yeah, no, we're really looking forward to the Monstropolis area. It's going to be a pretty good addition to Hollywood Studios. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about for the future of this park, though. Animation Courtyard. That's the area where Mermaid is, and Disney Junior and Star Wars Launch Bay. And we're back. The noise you heard, a little oof oof oof, that was the cat destroying something that we had to tend to briefly.
Yeah, we love live taping for a podcast, mainly because we just listened back to that and we said, oh yeah, that we're totally keeping that in.
But where was I? Animation Courtyard. Yep. So what is the deal with that?
Okay.
Why is Launch Bay still there?
Voyage, the Little Mermaid musical adventure, whatever they're calling it now, that will stay. They just put a lot of money into that. It's very well done. Keep it. Disney Junior, who knows? I think it's something that the toddlers need for the park. 100% needed for them. Especially if we can get the ability to put Bluey in there. You're going to have craziness ensue over there. Star Wars Launch Bay is a shadow of its former self. Nobody likes it anymore. Nobody goes to it. The only people that go to it is if you want a photo with Chewbacca and Darth Vader. They could easily move that somewhere else in the park.
Could you not move Disney Junior over to the Potato Land Theater?
Too small.
You think so?
It also depends on what they want to truly do, because I feel like they keep going back and forth with this Disney Junior notion. If you remember when it was Playhouse Disney, it was Bear in the Big Blue House and whatever the current shows were there. Then they moved it over to the Disney Junior version where it was then the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse. It was the puppetry with the characters there. Then they went to the Disney Junior Dance Party or something like that, where it was just the characters would come up and they would start dancing to their theme songs or whatever. Now I can't tell you what it is.
It's just gone through so many iterations, but it's like, I feel like Disney Junior could be put somewhere else, and
in some way, shape, or form, yeah.
Whether it's a renovated Potato Land Theater or something over there.
I think it just depends on what they want to do.
And
if they want to go back to that live show aspect, you need a bigger venue than the Mickey Shorts Theater.
Somewhere, and then
I also love that you call it the Potato Land Theater.
The Potato Land Theater.
Potato Land.
And then the Mermaid, the entrance for that show, they could just flip kind of to the other side towards Walt Disney Presents, right? And then get rid of Launch Bay, but you have a big area there to work with, right? So what is holding them back?
Yes, you have a lot of land that you could work with if and only if you get rid of the feature animation building. That is the big offices building that's right behind and attached to Star Wars Launch Bay.
That can be moved.
Which was kind of a famous site because that is where the animators did Brother Bear, Lilo and Stitch, Mulan. I believe Tarzan was the other one, ? I can't remember. Someone's going to yell at me for that. But like you said, that could be moved. It is just office buildings for managers and everything now. Why is that not just going to get moved and we could do something massive back there?
I just really don't understand why Launch Bay is still open when you have Star Tours and Galaxy's Edge.
Correct. Launch Bay was always meant to be that filler until Galaxy's Edge opened. When Galaxy's Edge opened, it was supposed to go bye-bye. And I'm wondering if COVID had an issue with that.
Well, I'm also wondering if that's kind of telling of the future for the villain show. That's why, it makes sense for the villain show to kind of retire once the Villains Land is open or close to opening. But will it?
It's entirely possible to do. It's just, will Disney do it?
So it's kind of, at this point, I think there's a lack of vision for the park, and I think it's starting to show.
100%. It has moved away, as we discussed last week, it has moved away from this working studio aspect that was kind of the principal theme of the park into this, we want to show you the behind-the-scenes stuff like with Indiana Jones stunt show, but then we also want you to be fully immersed into these movies with Galaxy's Edge and Runaway Railway. And then we also have these shows too that showcase the movies and let you relive those favorite moments. So it's an identity crisis of a park.
So I have a vision for this park.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of my ultimate fantasy that it's probably never going to happen.
Go on.
But one of the things I would do for this park, so I would make the Rock and Roller Coaster area a Muppet Studios, right? And I would take the Launch Bay Animation Courtyard. Let's do Arendelle. Don't worry about the pavilion at Epcot. Let's take Frozen,
become what it was meant to be with Norway.
A tribute to Norway, right? Redevelop the Norway pavilion in a proper Norway like it was, kind of like a new version of it, right? But let's bring a full-fledged Arendelle immersive land here.
And it's not like they kind of built that in Hong Kong, and they're also building it in Paris as we speak.
So it's like the land has staying power.
Yeah.
So, but Matt, what is your ultimate thing you would do for Hollywood Studios?
It needs to be like we've talked about. It needs to be this IP-centered park. Whether and it would need a name change. It would need to be something like Disney's Hollywood Adventure. I don't know. Disney's Cinematic Adventure. Something like that. Where it's a salute to all movies, but mostly Disney.
I got it.
I'm glad you did. It needs to have that centralized theme again. Does that mean we have to get rid of stuff still from the 90s of the studios, meaning Indiana Jones Epic Stunt Spectacular? Yeah, probably. Because that show's kind of outdated, unfortunately. I was really hoping that they would try and cross in Dial of Destiny to that when that movie came out just a few years ago, but they didn't.
It just stays the same all the time. Yeah. And it's a good show, but it's
granted,
35 years old.
It's those iconic moments of Indy running away from the boulder. Him trying to escape Cairo. And then the finale scene with him rescuing Marion from the plane, and then them setting the plane all ablaze with the pyrotechnics and everything. It's a show that we could easily get rid of, and it's huge real estate for something big. That's probably where we probably should have put Indiana Jones ride instead of replacing Dinosaur over in Tropical Americas. And overall, it's just this park still needs a lot of work. There was a rumbling when they announced Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land and Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway that the park would get a massive facelift just like California Adventure got. Is that day coming? God, I hope so. Because you walk down Hollywood Boulevard and you can probably remember that walking down as a kid just 10, 15, 20 years ago, and reliving those moments of what it was like when you would walk down and see the great movie ride. I will say this. Hollywood Studios used to be one of my favorite parks to visit when I was on my college program back in 2011. It was a very simple park that I could just walk around a little bit. I could enjoy Star Tours. I could enjoy Muppets. I could walk the streets of America. I loved checking out the AFI exhibit that was at the end of the backlot tour, towards the end. I also maybe saw a show. I usually would go to see Voyage of the Little Mermaid, and then I would cap off my evening by seeing Fantasmic. This park has such an identity crisis now that if I were to do that to this day, I really don't know where I would go, especially with the fact that a lot of these attractions have such high wait times that it's so difficult to pick one, and then you'd have to be like, okay, well, I'm going to be sitting here for an hour and a half or whatever, especially in the heat of the summer like it is now.
I think more ride capacity is also really important for this park because once the last shows are done, after 4 or 5 o'clock, the wait times shoot up because there's nothing to do.
More C and D ticket attractions.
Yes.
Hollywood Studios suffers from a problem of too many e-ticket attractions. Millennium Falcon, Rise of the Resistance, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway, Star Tours, Rock and Roller Coaster, Tower of Terror, Toy Story Mania. These are all considered e-ticket attractions. And guess what? I just listed 90% of the rides that are in this park. The only 2 rides that are not really considered e-ticket attractions will be Slinky Dog Dash and Alien Swirling Saucers. Now, Slinky Dog Dash suffers from an identity crisis, in my opinion, because it is not an e-ticket coaster in any way, shape, or form. It is more like a D-ticket, okay? It's something that you could easily probably ride once and be done with it, okay? Especially because of that wait time. And then Alien Swirling Saucers is 100% a flat ride. It is a C or a D-ticket ride. That's it. Everything else in the park are e-tickets. We need more smaller rides that aren't drawn into the crowds. That can, we were talking about it with Universal this morning. Villain Con. Villain Con is not in any way, shape, or form an e-ticket attraction.
Absolutely not.
And Universal knew that going in. They knew that. And that's why they made it. So then this way it could just absorb people when needed. It's just like the carousel in Epic Universe. Is that an e-ticket? No. It is
just something to do.
It's something to do, correct. It is something that when everything else has a long wait, you can go off and do that. And that's why you see with the carousel that if it is a 5-minute wait, the park is not that busy, because then you can look at the surrounding wait times and maybe they're about an hour. But if the carousel has a 25-minute wait, then the rest of the park is very busy.
Right.
Hollywood Studios does not have that, because every single ride there has over an hour wait on average. It needs help. It needs a lot of help. And the biggest thing that you can do is, number 1, bring in more C&D ticket attractions. And I think also, too, update these shows. You did a great job with the Little Mermaid show. You did a good job with Villains. Villains is the extra, strength for the capacity.
What show we didn't mention at all? The Beauty and the Beast show. And I think that's just kind of a testament to...
It's withstood the test of time.
But also, it's not changed.
Correct.
I have no reason to go see that show again. Just like Indiana Jones, I have no reason to go see that show.
Theater of the Stars was always meant to be an ever-changing theater. I believe, if I remember correctly, Ron would tell me that it was always kind of meant to be showcasing the next big thing. Okay? The reason why they really didn't mess with it after Beauty and the Beast was because of how successful it was. It is kind of... That and Lion King were the true winners of the Disney Renaissance era for animation. I've always said, how about instead of the Frozen sing-along, we should have put a full-blown stage production of Frozen there. We could have done that. Also, too, biggest thing, by the way, you need to enclose that theater. Why is it partially outside?
The Beauty and the Beast theater?
Yeah. It's open air.
It's Florida. The weather's always nice.
He said sarcastically.
I can tell you it was really, really hot today.
Yeah. That's a huge problem, too, in that people will still go to see it. Absolutely. But they're going to have a miserable time because they're being crammed into these stadium seats that they're there, and they're sweating their everything off. And it's not good for guest satisfaction. And close it down. Show Beauty and the Beast's final performance. Let all the crazies get emotional and everything. Close it down. Tear it down. Enclose the theater. You did that with the Premiere Theater back in the day too, because Hunchback was a open air theater, and then they
Nemo.
tore that down. And
They did it with Nemo.
They did it with, well, because that was originally Tarzan Rocks, and then they
Right.
switched it over to Nemo.
What was it? It was something before Tarzan Rocks too.
Journey into the Jungle Book.
Yes.
It was very short-lived. I think it only lasted like a year, because then Tarzan had come out and they wanted to promote Tarzan. Anyway, that's an Animal Kingdom discussion, if anything, for when we talk about Animal Kingdom. Anyway, Hollywood Studios, it needs work.
Hopefully, as things progress and as the competition moves on, Disney gives it its love it deserves. But I feel like that might be a great place to wrap up for today.
I think so too. Thank you all again for joining us. Definitely a little bit shorter of a show this week too. Also, really a couple of quick housekeeping notes as well that I did forget to mention at the top of the show. We are starting to move over to social media with this podcast. In the coming weeks, you'll be able to find us on Instagram, TikTok, which that's going to be a whole learning curve for me, Facebook,
Yes.
and Twitter. I've made that determination just now that I'll create the Twitter account. Or I should say X, excuse me.
We'll let you know how to get in touch with us through those.
Yeah.
Probably on
We'll
our
be
next
working on
episode.
those and
Like
we'll
we said.
give you the links and everything. But again, thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed it.
Remember, next week we're not going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
But the week after, we're intending to do an episode. It will probably be something along the lines of Test Track review and maybe just a little Epic Universe notes. One thing we've been noticing with Epic Universe is it seems like attendance is up. They're not throttling the attendance anymore so much because a lot of the wait times look higher. So I'm interested to see how the first true summer experience at Epic is next week, and I will let you guys know.
Yeah, we'll definitely be talking about that in 2 weeks, not next week.
Yes.
2 weeks.
I'm going next week.
Thank you again all for joining us. Again, please make sure that you're sharing out the show. This show is only successful if we keep seeing the audience there. So again, thank you for joining us. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and hope you guys all have a wonderful 4th of July week.